Hello everyone, and welcome to Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting series on what if Naruto had the power of Crimson Dragon and Orange Fox. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Konoha. We zoom in on one of our main heroes, a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. He is wearing a white t-shirt with an orange spiral on it, black shorts, and blue sandals. He was a whopping age of 6, and the strangest thing about him was that he had 6 whisker marks on his face, 3 on each cheek. Oh, and he just so happened to be running from an angry mob with pitchforks and knives and whatnot, you know, the usual crazy mob thing. Get him. Kill the demon brat. Save 5% on your car insurance. What the hell's a car? I mean, get the demon brat. Naruto was currently running away from the furious villagers trying to hurt him. Note the crazy grin on his face as if he was enjoying this. Naruto only laughed as he ducked into an alleyway, hiding from the mob that was left chasing after nothing. Naruto let out a sigh and chuckled a bit. They never learn, do they? Naruto grinned and put his hands in his pockets before walking away while grinning, heading towards the local park. Konoha Park. As Naruto walked into the playground where all the other kids played, he noticed that some of the bigger kids were laying on the ground knocked out. No, come on man, I was just joking. At the center of the playground was a boy around the same age as Naruto. He had brown hair that slightly covered his eyes. He was wearing black pants and a crimson tank top. Closed-toe shoes adorned his feet. His eyes were golden yellow. He also so happened to be holding one of the bigger kids by the scruff of his shirt, holding his fist back. The boy glared at the kid he was holding. "You gonna apologize for what you did?" he said as he leaped slight killing intent, but enough to scare the boy. "Yes, I'm sorry, I won't mess with you again, oh." The boy turned his head to see Naruto stomping his way right towards them. He stopped a few feet away and glared at the boy. "Put that kid down, or I'ma kick your ass." The boy chuckled before tossing the bigger kid to the side. He turned towards Naruto and grinned. "What are you gonna do about it?" Naruto only glared before dashing at the boy with surprising speed, punching him in the face. The boy skidded back a little before grinning. "That your best punch? My turn." He dashed forward and hit Naruto in the face with a right jab, before kneeing him in the stomach. Naruto got up and coughed a little, before wiping his mouth and dashing angrily at the boy, engaging in a long brawl. 3 hours later, both the boys were now seen, covered in scrapes, cuts, and bruises. They were laying on their backs, panting, tired from their long fight. The boy let out a sigh. "Oi, what's your name?" Naruto moved his head and glanced curiously at the boy. The boy glared lightly, forcing himself to repeat what he said. "I said, what's your name?" Naruto grinned before wobbling his way over to the boy. "Naruto, and yours?" The boy smiled. "Sukune." The boy, now identified as Sukune, offered his fist, letting Naruto bump fists with him. "You're a good fighter, Naruto." Naruto only grinned as he sat up. "You too, Sukune." 1 year later, Sukune, age 8, Naruto, age 7. It had been a year since the meeting of Sukune and Naruto, fastly becoming friends. They had begun forming a reputation for themselves, becoming known as the two street rats. They were always causing trouble, either by getting into fights with the older kids, playing pranks on someone, or stealing from food shops. This was brought to the attention to the Sandaime Hokage many times. He only laughed and said, "They're just kids being kid," much to the irritation and ire of many of the civilians and shinobi living in the village. Their favorite hangout was quite possibly Ichiraku Ramen, more for Naruto than Sukune, who was only there since his best friend was a ramen freak. Tucci, the owner of the ramen bar, was always glad to have them over. Which is where we will currently find our two heroes, as they indulge in the finest cuisine in all of Konoha. Naruto was devouring his 4th bowl, proving his addiction to ramen was not a joke. Sukune was sitting over to the side, eating 5 plates worth of meat. The boy was truly a carnivorous kid, eating meat 24/7. Tucci only laughed as he watched his 2 favorite customers devour their so-called nectar of the gods, only stopping to breathe or drink some water. Tucci smiled down at the 2 boys. "You guys satisfied?" All Tucci got was a simultaneous grunt of approval, making him laugh in amusement as he started washing dishes. His daughter, Ayame, could only stare in wonder as the 2 food monsters devoured their plates. Her eyes were wide, full of shock as she watched them eat. Where do they put all of it? Tucci could not laugh as he watched his daughter stare in wonder. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, Ayame-chan. Two simultaneous burps were heard as Sukune and Naruto finished their meals. They both smiled at Tucci and put down a roll of bills. Thanks for the meal, Tucci-osan, Sukune said as he grinned. He jumped down from the stool and put his hands in his pockets and nudged his head at Naruto, indicating that they should leave. Come on, Naruto, we gotta go before it gets dark. Naruto nodded his head before smiling at Tucci and jumping down from the stool, running along with Sukune as he waved back to Tucci. Bye, Tucci-ji-san. See you next time. Chuki waved as the two boys ran off in the night. Later that night on the street, Naruto gave a satisfied burp as he patted his stomach, Sukune chuckling beside him. Naruto grinned as he put his hand behind his head. Man, that was good, we should eat there more often. Sukune could only laugh as his best friend smiled. Dude, we go there every other day, I think we eat there enough. Naruto only smiled. Yeah, but not enough. Sukune laughed as he and Naruto made their way back home. As they were walking, in front of them appeared a group of shinobi, genin in rank, and appearing to be very drunk. The first one walked up, the stench of booze all around them as he glared down at Sukune and Naruto. Well, what do we have here, boys? 2 street rats. Sukune and Naruto only glared as they began to back up. The second one walked up and noticed Naruto. Ain't dat da demon brat? The other ninja glared at Naruto, killing intent leaking out of them. Let's get him. Naruto and Sukune ran from their pursuers, but to no avail, as the genin ninja slowly caught up to them, backing them into a cornered alleyway. Sukune tried to punch one of them but only got swatted away, sent flying into a barrel of trash cans. The shinobi all glared at Naruto, who was backed against the wall, having no option but to cower in fear. The shinobi grinned as they were about to begin pummeling him, but were stopped once they felt a rise in killing intent. They turned around to see Sukune, standing on his feet, a crimson aura glowing from his body. What appeared to be red scales appeared on his hands and arms, his eyes glared angrily at the shinobi. Get the hell away from my friend. Sukune charged at the opposing shinobi, dealing with them quite easily, knocking them unconscious during the process. Once it was over, Naruto could only stare at his friend, shocked at the display of power. Whoa, Sukune. Hiruzen arrived on the scene to see Naruto standing there in shock as Sukune looked down, his claws and scales still on his arms and hands. The Sandame sighed as he ordered an Anbu to clean up the unconscious shinobi. He then walked over to Naruto and Sukune, putting a hand on both their shoulders. Come with me. He shunshined them to the Hokage Tower, ready to explain what was going on. Hokage Tower. The Sandame sighed as he looked at the two boys in front of him, pulling out his pipe and smoking it. He shifted his gaze solely on Naruto. So, I bet you're wondering how Sukune did that. Naruto only nodded his head to confirm it. The Sandame sighed and continued. Well, you see, there are other things besides humans in this world. How should I explain this? You know of the Biju, right? Naruto nodded his head again, allowing Hiruzen to continue. Well, they themselves are demons, monsters, or yokai. And they are not the only ones. There are many species out there, many with different powers and abilities. Sukune just so happens to be one of them. Naruto glanced at Sukune before putting his full attention back on the Sandame. Sukune could only keep his head down the whole time. The Sandame sighed before continuing. Well, I'm sure you've heard or at least read about dragons. Getting a nod from Naruto, he smiled. Well, Sukune is one. After hearing that, Naruto busted out of his chair in shock and awe. Whoa, really? He turned his attention to Sukune and smiled widely. You're a dragon. That's so cool. Sukune could only sit in surprise as Naruto went into a rant about how cool Sukune was now. You're not scared or mad? Naruto could only smile and cross his arms. What? Why would I be mad about that? I'm only mad about you not telling me. That's freaking cool. My brother is a dragon. Sukune only smiled as he stood up and bumped fists with Naruto, talking about how cool they'll be in the future. The Sandame only smiled as he watched the two best friend. You two will do great things, that's for sure. 8 years later. What happens during that time will be explained throughout the story. What do you mean we have to leave? Tsunade could only rub her temples in frustration. glaring at the two men in front of her. They may have grown and changed, but they were still those two little brats. Naruto had changed, growing to be 5 feet 8, losing all his baby fat, and gaining muscle like an Olympic swimmer, with a six-pack to boot. His blonde hair growing out, becoming like his father's. He now wore a black undershirt with an orange, sleeveless, overshirt with black flames on his collar, sleeves, and bottom of the shirt. Black cargo pants adorned his legs, with black close-toed shoes on his feet. He had 2 fingerless red fighting gloves on his hands. 2 katanas were strapped to his side. Measuring at 5 feet long, the first katana's blade was solid black, with red waves adorning the sharp edge of the blade. It was in a black sheath with orange spirals going down the sides. Its handle was black with red diamonds. Its guard was in a flower shape. The second blade was also 5 feet long, with its blade being pure white with blue waves on the sharp edge of the blade. It was in a white sheath with cherry blossoms going down the side. Its handle was white with blue diamonds, and its guard was in an oval shape. Sukune had also changed, becoming 6 feet 0, his hair pretty much staying the same. He had grown a lot of muscle, kinda like a Dragon Ball Z character, just slightly less. He now wore a red shirt that was under a crimson long-sleeved hoodie. Black, baggy pants adorned his legs, and black close-toed shoes were on his feet. These two had grown to become strong, surpassing even the Sannin in strength and skill. Intelligence? Probably not. These two had become legends in Konoha, no longer the 2 street rats, but now the heroes of the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto had managed to defeat Pain, with so little as a few cuts. Sukune defeated both Kisame and Hidan, defeating the 2 so-called monsters with his fists alone. And now, Tsunade was shipping them off to some school for regular civilians like it didn't mean nothing. Naruto had both his hands on Tsunade's desk, glaring at the woman. Why the hell do we have to leave Baa-chan? We're perfectly fine the way we are. Sukune crossed his arms and glared silently at Tsunade, not wanting to leave either. Tsunade sighed as she slammed her hands down on her desk. We're sending you away for your own safety. The Akatsuki are too dangerous. They destroyed most of the village and are still out looking for you. We don't know if you can survive. Plus, Sasuke had joined them, and we both know that you will try to talk to him. Naruto stood up to argue, but was stopped before he could say anything. No buts, it's for your own safety. Naruto sighed before sitting down in a chair and gazing at his mother figure. Can I at least ask one question? Tsunade raised an eyebrow. What? Why the hell is Sukune coming with me? Tsunade shifted her gaze towards Sukune, who was staring at her, as if asking the same question. She turned back to Naruto and blankly stated, to keep you out of trouble. Naruto and Sukune both face planted after that, pondering why she was Hokage. Tsunade leaned back in her chair before crossing her arms in front of her face. Besides, we both know that Sukune is also a target due to his, shall we say, bloodline. We wouldn't want Akatsuki getting their hands on a power like that. Sukune could only sigh as he raised his hands in defeat. He gazed questioningly at his mother figure. When are we leaving? Tsunade only smiled at Naruto and Sukune. Right now. On the bus, Sukune and Naruto sighed as they sat on the one-way trip to Yokai Academy. Their friends and surrogate family had wished them off, with Sakura telling Naruto to be careful and that Sukune shouldn't start any fights. They could both only sigh at the advice. Sakura acted as if this was bound to happen. The bus driver, who for some reason had creepy glowing eyes, chuckled as they arrived. Here's your stop, boys. Naruto grinned as he rushed off the bus. Thanks, creepy-eyed Osan. Sukune smiled and nodded his head towards the bus driver. As the door began closing, the bus driver grinned evilly. Oh, by the way, better watch out. Yokai Academy can be a very scary place. Sukune and Naruto turned around to ask what he meant, but the bus had already zoomed off. The two friends turned around to see that the landscape itself was straight out of a horror film. Gravestones, jack-o'-lanterns, creepy trees with no leaves. Naruto could only stare blankly at the landscape. Yup, we're gonna get killed by a creepy dude with a machete. Sukune only sighed and began walking. Come on, the sooner we get there, the sooner we can get some sleep. The two friends made their way down the road, not prepared for the trials they were in store for. On the road as they walked further, Sukune began to wonder exactly why they had to come to this place. I mean, Why would they ever have to go to some boring old school Duel? Look out! Sukune, move out of the... Naruto was too late as the bike crashed into his friend, knocking him to the ground. Way. Sukune rubbed his head as an angry tick mark appeared on his head. What the hell? Who just crashes a bike against someone? You better get your ass out of here before I knock the shit out of ya. Sukune was stopped in his angry rant as soon as he saw the perpetrator of the bike crash. It was a girl around the age of Sukune and Naruto, with pink hair that flowed all the way to her rear end. She appeared to be around Naruto's height and was wearing the uniform for the school. Emerald green eyes stared into Sukune's golden ones in worry. Oh, I'm sorry, are you hurt? I didn't mean to crash into you. I just sometimes get lightheaded. Sukune's only remark was, ooh, Abba, ooh. Naruto elbowed his friend before grinning at the new girl. Sorry about that. He just gets blank-headed sometimes. Name's Naruto, and you? The girl bowed before giving off a beautiful smile. My name is Moka. I'm going to Yokai Academy. Naruto grinned before wrapping an arm around the stunned Sukune's shoulder. Sweet, we're too. This is Sukune, by the way, you know, the guy you ran over. Moka noticed that blood was running down Sukune's head and rushed over to him, pulling a handkerchief out of her pocket. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me get that. She began wiping the blood from Sukune's head, even with the protest of Sukune. I'm anemic, so sometimes I space out. It's really bothersome, but you get used to it. Sukune only nodded his head dumbly, not really knowing what to do in this situation. And the thumbs up and smile he was getting from Naruto wasn't really helping either. Moka kept trying to wipe up the blood, but she stopped in her musings and blushed. I'm sorry, but you see, I can't withstand the scent of blood, because you see. Sukune raised an eyebrow curiously before he was answered. I'm a vampire. Moka then sunk her teeth into Sukune's neck, who stood there in shock as Moka began drinking his blood. From Naruto's point of view, it looked like Moka was giving his friend a hickey, but he noticed the fangs going into Sukune's neck. Moka's eyes widened in shock before she jumped away from Sukune and began bowing. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's just that your blood smelled delicious and I just couldn't help myself. Sukune placed his hand where Moka bit and felt 2 hole marks that were quickly fading away. He glanced at Moka and grinned nervously. That's okay, it's no big deal. Naruto could only stand there as he watched his friend get bitten by the cute girl they just met. Moka quickly bowed and apologized one more time before running off towards school, leaving just Naruto and Sukune alone. Naruto walked over to Sukune and grinned. Hell yeah, man. Just a few short minutes here and you're already getting chicks. This place is awesome. Sukune could only nod his head before they heard the bell, sending Naruto and Sukune speeding off towards the school. In Nekonome's classroom, Sukune sat by the window, his chin resting on his hand as he gazed outside, wondering why Tsunade chose this place of all places. Naruto sat next to him, already asleep on the desk, but no one seemed to take notice. Sukune could only chuckle at his friend. Still a slacker, I see. His thoughts were changed when the door to the classroom opened and a lady with brown hair and glasses walked in. She got in front of the class and smiled. Hello students, and welcome to your first day at Yokai Academy. Sukune noticed something about the woman. Her hair looked strangely like cat ears. She continued speaking. I am Nekonome Sensei, and I will be your homeroom teacher, and as you all know, Yokai Academy is a school for monsters. Sukune's eyes widened when he heard this. He turned his gaze to Naruto, who shot up as soon as he heard it, his eyes to widening, but quickly changing to a grin as he mouthed words to Sukune. More fun for us. Sukune only shook his head and smiled. His friend would never change. Nekonome continued on about the school and why it was here, about how it was here to teach monsters how to blend in with society, which some thug named Saizo stupidly replied that they should just eat the humans. Naruto commented on the brain capacity of Saizo, making the class laugh and Saizo growl in anger. The class was interrupted as Moka walked in, panting slightly. Hello, is Nekonome Sensei's class? The men of the classroom instantly broke out in lust, hearts replacing their eyes. Who is that? She's so gorgeous. Become my girlfriend. Marry me. A riot formed about the new girl before Nekonome settled the class down. Sukune groaned in annoyance as Naruto laughed. Nekonome turned a puzzled gaze towards Moka. And you are? Moka bowed and smiled. My name is Moka Akashiya, I'm supposed to be in this class. Nekonomiya smiled and checked her list. Ah, Moka-san. Your seat is behind Aono-kun. Aono-kun, raise your hand. Sukune begrudgingly raised his hand, making Moka look at him with a surprised look. She automatically ran up to him and tackled him. Sukune. We're in the same class. Oh, and Naruto is here too. Naruto only grinned and waved at Moka, making the girl let go of Sukune and wave back. All the guys in the class could only stare in jealousy towards how friendly the two were being with the girl. After class, the homeroom was dismissed so that the students could go get used to their surroundings. Sukune was automatically grabbed by Moka and dragged around the school, with Naruto following close behind, his hands behind his head. Man, why can't a pretty girl drag me around? They stopped in a lobby-type area and bought some drinks, with Moka getting tomato juice and Naruto getting soda. Moka sat in between the two friends, smiling as she drank her juice. She glanced at both of them before going back to drinking. Naruto noticed this and smiled. There a problem, Moka? Moka jumped a little before blushing. I was just wondering what type of monsters you two are. I mean, I know it's against the rules and all. Sukune only grinned as Naruto laughed. Naruto waved towards himself, telling Moka to lean closer. You want to know what type of monsters we are? Moka nodded her head before continuing to listen. Naruto leaned in close to Moka and smiled. It's a secret, Naruto yelled, making Moka jump a little before glaring cutely at Naruto, who was laughing. Sukune was chuckling a little as Moka pouted. Naruto is mean. Naruto could only smile and shrug. Sukune grinned until he noticed Saizo walking towards them, a haughty smirk on his face. Saizo walked over and smiled at Moka. Moka Akashiya, why are you hanging out with these two losers when you could be hanging out with a real man? Naruto and Sukune glared, but Moka only shuddered and smiled nicely. I'm enjoying my time with Naruto and Sukune-kun. Saizo glared and picked up Sukune by the collar of his shirt, glaring at him. You enjoy hanging out with this wimp. Moka began reaching out to help, but was quickly stopped by Naruto, who put his hand in front of her. Sukune only smirked. Wow, that's your best comeback. Now I can understand. What with your brain mass being the size of a pea, but you'd think it would be a little decent. Saizo glared before throwing Sukune into the vending machine. Moka tried to rush to him but was once again stopped by Naruto, who shook his head. Saizo closed his eyes and began laughing, thinking he had won, but was quickly interrupted as a searing pain appeared in his back and he was sent flying through a wall. Sukune stood there, dusting himself off and glaring at the spot Sukune had just punched Saizo to. You should really work on your guard, it's pathetically weak. Moka grabbed both Sukune's and Naruto's hand before rushing off, not wanting to cause more of a scene. On the roof, Naruto, Moka, and Sukune stood on the roof of the school after Moka had dragged them there. Moka glared lightly at Sukune. Sukune-kun, why did you do that? Fighting is bad. Sukune only shrugged before leaning against the roof's fence. He started it. Naruto only laughed before sitting down and leaning against the two. Besides, if he can't take that punch, he doesn't deserve to fight Sukune. The trio stood in silence for a bit, just enjoying the breeze. Naruto stood up and stretched before looking at Moka. Hey Moka, I've been meaning to ask, if you're a vampire, aren't you supposed to be super powerful or something? Moka nodded her head before unbuttoning her shirt, causing Naruto to grin excitedly and Sukune to close his eyes. Moka pointed to the rosary on her neck. This rosary is used to seal my power. Without it on, my power comes through and I become a true vampire. Naruto whistled before staring at the rosary. Pretty powerful seal. I'm pretty good with seals myself, but I don't think I could make something that takes away all of your power. Sukune began to wonder before asking, Moka-san, why would you need a rosary? Moka's smile faded before it turned into a frown. She sighed and looked at her two new friends. You see, I used to live in the human world for my safety, to make sure I wasn't a danger to myself or the humans. My power was sealed to make sure I was a normal girl. Sukune and Naruto nodded their heads in understanding, letting the girl continue. But the human world turned out to be a horrible place. They treated me as if I was a freak, saying I was weird just because I believed in monsters. They pulled pranks on me and mocked me. Humans are so terrible. Naruto clutched his hands and looked down at the ground. Moka, what would you say if I said I was human? Moka turned her head in shock, fear showing in her eyes. What? Naruto raised his head and looked Moka in the eye. Moka, I'm human, I'm not a monster. Moka began back away before clutching her chest. That's not true, humans are horrible, evil. Naruto looked away sadly before walking away. If you hate humans so much, then I guess we can't be friends. Naruto walked away, leaving the roof and Moka and Sukune alone. Moka looked at Sukune with tear-filled eyes. Sukune-kun, you're not a human too, are you? Sukune only nodded his head. If she couldn't accept his friend, then he couldn't accept her, even if it wasn't true. Moka began to tear up before running away, leaving just Sukune. In the forest, Moka could only cry at what she just found out, but humans are evil, those two can't be. Ah, my sweet Moka, you don't need to cry, I'm here now. Moka turned her head to see Seize walking towards her, his long, creepy tongue wiggling out of his mouth. She slowly began backing away as he moved toward her. Where are you going? I only want to talk. Moka only shook her head. I'm sorry Saizo-san, but I don't want to talk to you. Moka tried to run but was stopped by something wrapping around her leg and pulling her into the air and holding her upside down. Saizo stared in unhidden lust. I can't take it anymore, I have to have you. Moka let out a scream as Saizo began tearing some of her clothes. With Naruto and Sukune, the two warriors were standing against the wall in the lobby. Sukune looked at Naruto. You think you could have just talked to her? Naruto shook his head. I probably should have, from the way she said it, it sounded like she was kinda like us. They both heard a yell coming from the forest and simultaneously began running. Moka. With Moka and Saizo, Moka could only watch in fear as Saizo began revealing his true form, a hulking mass of muscle known as an orc. The now transformed orc could only grin lustfully, planning to capture his prey. Now that no one's here to stop me, you're all mine. Think again, numbnuts. An arc of wind came flying from the sky, cutting Saizo's tongue off from Moka's leg, causing the orc to howl in pain. Moka began falling but was quickly caught by Sukune. Gotcha, don't start running off without us. Tears began forming in Moka's eyes as she hugged her friend. Sukune-kun, you came back. Sukune could only smile as Naruto appeared next to them, holding both of his blades. However, their reunion was cut short as Saizo got back up, blood coming out of his mouth. He leveled a glare at Sukune. Ubwathard, ilkiwu. Sukune only glared before setting Moka down. Stay here while I knock the shit out of this guy. Moka moved to stop him but was stopped by a grinning Naruto. Don't worry, he's got this. Sukune began cracking his knuckles as Saizo charged at him, throwing his gigantic fist at his body. Sukune sidestepped and lazily threw an uppercut at Saizo's jaw, sending the orc flying. Moka looked surprised, which Naruto quickly picked up and chuckled. Out of all of our village, Sukune is the physically strongest. Saizo got up, although staggering on his feet, before charging once more. IKIWWU. Sukune cupped his ear and grinned. I'm sorry. What? I can't understand you. You might want to do something about your tongue. Saizo yelled angrily before trying to slam his fists on Sukune. Sukune easily stopped the fists with one hand. Sukune glared at the surprised Saizo. You really should have quit while you were ahead. Sukune tossed Saizo up before planting his foot in the ground and slamming his fist against Saizo's gut, sending the orc flying at high speed, crashing through a yard of trees. Sukune admired his handiwork and walked back over to Naruto and Moka, grinning as he did so. So, you okay, Moka? Moka could only stare as tears welled up in her eyes. But, I said I hated humans. Naruto grinned. Well, considering I don't care and that Sukune isn't really human, it's all good. Moka could only smile as she hugged both of them with glee. This however was interrupted as a tree came flying out of nowhere, heading straight for them. Sukune noticed this and pushed Moka out of the way. Chink, the noise was heard as Moka looked down at her rosary, which wasn't there anymore. The rosary, it came off. A burst of yokai energy emerged from Moka, who was wrapped up in what looked like bats. Naruto and Sukune could only stand there in awe as Moka transformed before their very eyes. Her legs became more voluptuous, her bust became bigger, and her hair turned silver. When she opened her eyes, there was no longer emerald green, but blood red as she stared down at Sukune. Saizo could only stand in fear at what he witnessed. He would have said something, but his tongue was cut off. The new Moka stared at Saizo before haughtily grinning. What, didn't you say you wanted me? Well then, come get me. Saizo grew angry before charging Moka, thinking he could take her. He was quickly shot down when he was kicked in the face, knocking him out. Know your place. Naruto could only stare before nudging Sukune. Hey bro, did Moka just turn into an even hotter babe? Yup. With bigger boobs and great legs. Yup, and hair like silk. Yup. You wanna hit that, don't you? You shut the hell up. The new Moka turned her attention towards Naruto and Sukune, walking straight up to them. To think, you weaklings needed to call me for a fool like this. Sukune leveled a glare towards the new Moka, who said we needed you help. I could have easily kicked his ass, you were just there after I weakened him. Moka smirked haughtily before sending a roundhouse kick towards Sukune. Know your place. Sukune caught the kick with one hand, surprising the new Moka. Listen, I don't know what your deal is, but you need to pull that stick out of your ass. Moka only glared, while Naruto chanted Jerry behind the two. The new Moka smirked and removed her leg. Very well, I hope you won't need to call me for something as pathetic as this. She snatched the rosary from Sukune and snapped it back on, the last thing she said being, take care of the other me. Moka returned to normal, Sukune catching her as she fell. Naruto looked at the regular Moka and grinned. Remember when we got angry at Tsunade for sending us her? Well, I changed my mind, things just got a hell of a lot more interesting. Sukune stared blankly at his friend. Where do all your brain cells go? Oi! Yokai Academy, you totally like her. No I don't. Yeah you do, you want little vampire and dragon babies with her. No I don't, you want to get it on like Donkey Kong. Smack. OW, you see that, that is why no one tries to joke around with you. We join our two heroes on their morning trip to school. The main topic of their conversation being Sukune's supposed love towards the two brothers' new vampire friend, Moka. Sukune could only sigh while pulling out a lighter and a cigarette. Putting one in his mouth and lighting it, he let out a small puff. Naruto could only rub the spot where Sukune had punched him just a second ago. Geez, do you need to hit so hard? I was just playing. Taking another puff from the cigarette, Sukune glanced over to Naruto with a slight smirk. Well, you still need to learn how to control your mouth, and need to learn that whenever you speak, only dumbass words come out. Yeah I know Ryoi. The two were interrupted from their play fight when the boys walking around them began getting hearts in their eyes. They turned their attention to where everyone was staring and saw their new friend and school idol, Moka Akashiya, walking towards them happily. There she is, she's so beautiful, I would love to just have one night with her. I would love to just have one piece of her clothes. Dude, that's just wrong. The crowd was silenced as Moka spotted her two new friends and instantly ran towards them, tackle-hugging Sukune. Morning. Sukune-kun, Naruto. Sukune could only smile and wrap his arms around Moka in a hug. Morning Moka. Naruto greeted Moka with a foxy grin and a wave of his hand. Sup Moka. Gotta say, I'm kinda jealous of my bro now, what with all the love he's getting from you. Sukune and Moka instantly realized the position they were in and quickly separated, blushes on their faces. Moka took the time to then notice the cigarette in Sukune's mouth and pouted cutely. Sukune-kun, those things are bad for your health. Sukune could only sigh and smirk at Moka. It's just something I use to balance my power. I guess you could say they fuel me, plus they relieve stress. Moka still had a frown on her face and placed her hands on her hips. They're still bad though. Naruto could only laugh at the two. You two sound like an old married couple. Oh darling. You're smoking again. Calm down honey, it's just to relieve stress. Moka blushed while Sukune glared at Naruto before taking the cigarette out of his mouth and throwing it on the ground and putting it out. Whatever, let's hurry before we're late to class. Naruto nodded while Moka looked down at her feet nervously. Sukune noticed Moka's odd gesture and glanced curiously at her. Something wrong Moka? Moka glanced upwards at Sukune, looking rather cute. Anyo. I haven't had breakfast today so, Sukune, can I please drink your blood? Sukune's sweat dropped while Naruto could only chuckle. Sukune only sighed for lifting his neck up a little. Fine, go ahead. Moka jumped up happily before tackling Sukune and sinking her teeth in him. Kapuchu, ga, wow, That's gonna leave a huge hickey, I'm jealous. Route to school. Naruto, Sukune, and Moka walked to school, with Moka having her arms looped with both of theirs. Sukune stopped and stared off into the forest, thinking he heard something. Naruto and Moka stopped and glanced at Sukune. Naruto raised a curious eyebrow at the dragon. Something wrong, bro? Sukune stared seriously at the forest and nodded. You guys go ahead, I think I heard something coming from the forest. Moka looked worried for a second before nodding her head and continuing on. Naruto only grinned, knowing your luck, it's probably a huge boobed chick. Sukune sighed, glancing at the vampire and Jinchuriki's receding forms. Knowing my luck, it's probably just a huge problem waiting to explode in my face. In the forest, Sukune cautiously walked through the forest of dead trees, keeping his guard up. In a world where murders are everyday and monsters walk around casually, you always had to stay on edge. Then again, he did live in a world where guys could flatten whole cities to the ground and create a moon. Sukune shook his head, forgetting past memories, and trudged on. He stopped when he heard a faint sound and began walking towards it. Someone, please, help. Sukune began picking up his pace before arriving onto a strange sight. A girl around his age was collapsed on the ground. She had blue hair tied up in a ponytail, her bangs framing her beautiful face. Violet eyes that sparkled. She appeared to be wearing Yokai Academy's girl's uniform with a sweater vest instead of the usual green jacket. Sukune couldn't help but notice he, well-endowed, chest and had to turn his head to keep from staring. The girl decided to finally notice Sukune and glanced up at him weakly. Please help. Sukune bent down on one knee and offered his hand to the girl. Can you stand? The girl nodded, taking Sukune's hand and standing up. Yes, but she was interrupted when she suddenly fell into Sukune's chest. Sukune couldn't help but blush when her chest rubbed against his. The girl glanced up at him and frowned sadly. Sorry, I have a weak constitution and sometimes get an aching feeling in my chest, I can't help it. Sukune blushed as the girl's chest began rubbing up and down his, making his head go into a, shall we say, fuzzy place. I think I'm gonna need a few cold showers after this. Sukune could only sigh in relief when the girl finally stopped. He looked down at her and smiled. I'm sorry, I never got your name. The girl smiled. Kurumu Kurono. The girl now known as Kurumu said as she leaned more into Sukune's chest. Sukune smiled before grabbing a hold of Kurumu's hand. I think we should take you to the infirmary, Kurumu-san. Kurumu nodded her head before smiling. Thank you, Sukune. As they began walking back to the school, a wicked smirk adorned Kurumu's face. Yokai Academy roof. I'm really worried, Naruto. What if he's hurt? Moka glanced worriedly at her blonde friend, who was currently resting against the wall lazily. He glanced up at Moka and smiled. Don't worry, Moka-chan, he's alright. There's very few things in this world that can take Sukune down, and even then, he would just get back up and sock them in the jaw. Moka only glanced down nervously. I should at least apologize for this morning. Moka rushed to the roof door, intent on finding the dragon. Naruto watched her and leaned back smiling. Well, I'm sure the two lovebirds will be fine. Hallway. As Sukune escorted Kurumu towards the infirmary, she suddenly stopped and looked at Sukune. Sukune stared at the girl, wondering what was wrong. Something wrong, Kurumu-san? Kurumu looked up shyly at Sukune. Anyo, Sukune, could you look into my eyes? Sukune tensed and raised his eyebrows curiously. His past experiences with eyes had made him a little cautious when someone asked him to look into their eyes, but he was sure now wasn't the case. Sure. Sukune glanced down into Kurumu's eyes. Kurumu smiled at Sukune and wrapped her arms around him, making him blush. Would you do me the pleasure of being my friend? Kurumu's eyes reverberated with a purple energy, flowing into Sukune's eyes. Sukune realized too late what had happened. Shit, an illusion. Kurumu smiled evilly before rubbing her chest against Sukune. Now, Sukune, could we be friends? Without knowing he was doing so, Sukune's body reacted on its own and wrapped its arms around Kurumu. Yes, Kurumu-chan. As soon as I get out of this, I'm beating your ass. Just in time for the whole plot to tie together, Moka walking onto the scene of Sukune having his arms wrapped around Kurumu lovingly. She stood there shocked at what she saw. Anyo, Sukune, who is this? Kurumu smiled playfully at Moka. Oh my, aren't in the same class, you should really get to know your classmates Moka-san, right Sukune? Sukune wrapped his arms tighter around Kurumu. Yeah, that's right, Sukune said monotonously as his body moved on its own again. Sunnuva bitch, there it goes again. Kurumu smiled before latching onto Sukune's arm. Let's go, Sukune. Sukune could only watch as his body moved on its own. Sure, let's go. Moka reached out for Sukune as he began walking away. Wait, Sukune. No, I won't wait. If Moka can only see me as her breakfast, I'm not gonna wait. Why the hell did I say that? Motherfucker. Moka could only stand there in shock as Sukune walked away with Kurumu. Scene change. Moka walked the halls alone as she began to ponder what was going on with Sukune. He can't be that mad, can he? The vampire was interrupted from her thoughts when the voice that belonged to the girl from earlier appeared. Moka Akashiya, my rival. Moka looked up to see Kurumu sitting on the railing of the stairs leading up to the second floor. Anyo, you're the girl from earlier. Kurumu smiled before jumping down and landing in front of Moka, a confident aura around her. I'm here to challenge you. Moka could only stared surprised. What for? Kurumu smiled evilly before striking a pose. You are in the way of my plan of turning all the boys in Yokai Academy into my love slaves. Yes. The succubus Kurumu Kurono's grand harem plan. All the boys around the two idols grew hearts in their eyes. Sweet, she's so tiny but has great boobs, freaking epic. I'm gonna say this once, Bakaki. No, Moka could only sweat drop at what she heard before staring at the succubus curiously. And what does this have to do with Sukune? Kurumu once again smiled evilly before pointing at Moka. You, Moka Akashiya, have got in my way. For some reason, all the boys here think you are the prettiest girl in school and the #1 idol. Not only that, you have the two most popular guys in school at you beck and call. It's just unfair. Moka stared surprised at Kurumu before glaring at her. That doesn't make any sense. The feud was interrupted as Naruto and Sukune began walking towards the ensuing argument. So you see, if we add cheese to ramen, it just gets all soggy and loses its flavor, plus it kills the rest of the ingredients. Naruto, you are by far the most idiotic being that I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. I know you are, but what am I? You know what, I may just kill you. The two brothers stopped when they noticed Moka and Kurumu standing in the middle of the hall. Sukune sadly looked at Moka. Naruto, being Naruto, decided to add his own 2 cents. I feel a disturbance in the force, like there's going to be an impending chick fight. I may start hitting you now, I don't know when I'll stop. Before the Naruto could receive his fists of justice, Kurumu ran up and glomped Sukune, rubbing her chest against his. Naruto stared at the girl with a blush on his face. Damn bro. 2 girls in just 2 days, when the hell did you become this popular? Sukune glared down at Kurumu, grabbing onto her shoulders. Kurumu-san, please let go of me, I need to speak to Moka. Kurumu smiled evilly, looking into his eyes. Charm. Sukune again realized too late, motherfucking hell. Naruto looked on curiously as he saw his friend's eyes go blank. Moka glared at Kurumu as she latched onto Sukune. Sukune, get away from her. She's dangerous. Sukune blankly glanced at Moka, still holding on to Kurumu. Why, she would drink my blood and use me as lunch like you. Moka stepped back in shock with tears in her eyes. Naruto growled at Sukune while clenching his fists. Oi, what the hell was that for, bro? Kurumu smiled evilly, looking up into Sukune's eyes again. Sukune-kun, let's go, it's getting crowded here. Sukune nodded. Yes, if we stayed any longer, Moka might suck me dry. Moka could only stand in shock as Sukune walked away with Kurumu grinning evilly back at her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned and began to run away. Naruto stood there with his hand outstretched towards Moka. Wait. Moka-chan. Naruto let his hand fall back to his side. Clenching both his fists, he glanced down the hall Sukune had just walked through. Bro. You went too far. Outside the school, Moka was sitting on the steps, crying to herself. Why would he say such things? I thought he was my friend. He still is. Moka glanced down to see that her rosary was glowing with a crimson light. She gasped and brought the rosary to her face. What do you mean? That girl said she was a succubus. They have the ability to charm any man under their control. You might want to hurry though, if the succubus kisses him, he will be under her spell forever. Wait, what do you mean? By the time Moka asked the question, the rosary had already stopped glowing and had gone back to its original state. Moka stood up with a determined look. I have to hurry. In the forest, Kurumu stared up at Sukune, a blush on her face. I'm very nervous, this is my first kiss, but please enjoy it. Kurumu leaned in to kiss Sukune, but was interrupted as a kick sent Sukune flying across the road. Kurumu stared in shock at the spot Sukune flew to. Sukune. She turned to see Naruto standing there, his blades strapped to his side. Naruto glared down at the spot he had just kicked Sukune and growled. What the hell has gotten into you? Moka was trying to apologize for this morning and you go ahead and insult her and run off. Well, it's about time you got some sense knocked into you, the good old-fashioned way. Naruto drew the black blade and put it into his left hand. Mugetsu had been itching for some blood, about time I gave him some. Kurumu could only stare as Sukune got up from the crater, still in his trance, fury etched on his face. She glared at Naruto with pure fury in her eyes. What the hell are you doing? Naruto growled at Kurumu, making her step back instinctively. Stay out of this, girl, if you know what's good for you. Naruto dashed at Sukune, swiping downwards up with Mugetsu, aiming to behead Sukune. Surprising. Sukune brought his left arm up, blocking the strike. The following shockwave from Naruto's swing sent a shockwave that cut most of the trees behind it down. Sukune was surprisingly not bleeding, his hardened skin able to reflect the blade. He then moved behind Naruto and suplexed him, sending him head first towards the ground. Naruto flipped over at the last second and sheathed Mugetsu back, before jumping back and forming a few hand signs. Kei's no Sutairu. Tengoku no Ken, wind style, heavenly fist. Naruto threw his right fist out, sending out a fist made of pure wind. The pressure from the jutsu creating shockwaves and craters as it went by. Sukune crossed his arms in front of him, before being hit and sent flying back yards away, creating a trench along the way. Naruto glared at the spot Sukune was at before growling and pulling out Mugetsu again. Come on, I know you can handle more than that, get up. Kurumu could only stare in shock. What were these two made of? She glanced to where Sukune landed. He got up barely injured, his jacket and shirt torn off, revealing his muscled figure and 8-pack. Before the two could continue the fight, they were interrupted by Moka running between them. Stop. Please stop fighting. Naruto's gaze softened when he noticed Moka, but Moka-chan, I know what he did, Naruto, but it wasn't his fault, it was hers. Moka pointed directly at Kurumu, who stood there in shock. When did she find out? Moka glared at Kurumu. You're a succubus, you charmed Sukune into your slave. Kurumu grew angrier by the second, her plan crumbling before her. She growled as her nails grew to claws and wings and a tail grew from her back. Everything was working out until you came along, Dai Moka Akashiya. Kurumu flew up and toward Moka, intent on taking her out. Moka brought her hands up to protect herself but was pushed out of the way. She glanced to see that it was Sukune, who had snapped from his trance from Naruto's jutsu. Sukune. Chink! Before Kurumu could injure Sukune, Moka's rosary came off and an eruption of power went off, changing the scenery into night. Naruto stared blankly at the sight of Moka's transformation. Here we go again, is this going to be a regular thing or what? The aura died down to reveal Moka in her true form. Silver hair, red eyes, and all. She glanced at Kurumu, smirking arrogantly. My, someone has gotten a little bit cocky. Kurumu glared down at the transformed Moka. Shut up, I have a mission to carry out, for the future of my race. Sukune glanced up curiously. Mission? Kurumu nodded. That's right, my race finds their destined one, through enslaving men. When we find a man worthy of us, we choose him. And you, Moka Akashiya, are in my way. Kurumu charged towards inner Moka, slashing at her furiously. Naruto stood there, a huge smile on his face. Woohoo, catfight. Rip her top off. An angry tick mark grew on Sukune's head as her glared at his friend. Would you be serious? Naruto smiled at Sukune. I am being serious, I'm seriously enjoying this. Sukune sighed as he turned back to the fight, which Kurumu was losing. As Kurumu slashed at Moka, she disappeared and reappeared behind the succubus, grabbing her tail. Too slow. Realize the difference in power. The transformed Moka flung the succubus, sending her crashing through trees, finally stopping against a large one. A small bat flew up with its tiny wings. This week's fight lasted 76 seconds. Shoo. The transformed Moka walked up to the downed Kurumu, her power imposing over her. I'll snap those wings and tail so that you won't ever fly again. Kurumu looked up in fear, scared for her life. Please, no. Moka smirked evilly, but was stopped when Sukune appeared before her, his power exceeding hers. You're not going to touch her, the fight is over. Moka glared at Sukune, her red eyes trying to intimidate his gold ones. This woman enslaved you, then tried to get you to kill your best friend, move. Sukune's smirk, before crossing his arms. It's enough, she didn't mean any harm, plus, Naruto has a pretty thick head, and he wouldn't get any brain damage considering he doesn't have a brain. I heard that. You were meant to. Sukune chuckled before turning back to inner Moka and glaring. It's enough for today. Kurumu's a nice girl, she didn't mean any harm. Kurumu looked up as tears began forming in her eyes. The tears let loose as she began to cry. Sukune only sighed before handing the rosary back to inner Moka, who smirked. Don't misunderstand, I just don't want anyone snatching away your blood, Aono. Sukune smirked as she put the rosary back on. Love you too, bitch, but the inner Moka couldn't respond as the rosary was already locked in, transforming her back. Sukune caught the now pink hair Moka, just as Naruto walked up, Mugetsu resting lazily on his shoulder. So, we all good. Sukune glanced up with a smile. We're all good. You still have a thing for her. Now you have a thing for the bad girl too. Shut up. Next day. Do not. Do too. Do not. Do too. Do not. Dude, you totally have a harem now. Shut up Naruto. Naruto. Sukune. The two brothers looked to see Moka jogging towards them while waving. She stopped in front of them and smiled. Morning. Sukune and Naruto smiled at the girl in front of them, simultaneously saying morning. They began their trek to school, discussing yesterday's events. The rosary spoke to you. Moka nodded at Sukune's question, saying before that it was the one that told her about Kurumu. Sukune glanced at Naruto, who had his hand on his chin. Naruto glanced at Sukune and Moka, a theory in his head. Judging from the seal, it acts as an epicenter to your other self, either meaning that you can subconsciously talk to your other self, or you seal is weakening. Naruto then smiled and put his hands behind his head. But why worry, we got away all safe and sound, brand new days, brand new worries. Sukune and Moka laughed at their friend's lazy ways, before looking at each other. Sukune scratched the back of his head, smiling sheepishly. Sorry about yesterday Moka. Moka shook her head before smiling. It's all right, Sukune. Moka. Sukune. Moka. Sukune. Good morning, Sukune-kun. The group turned around in surprise to see Kurumu standing there with a bag of cookies. She held them out towards Sukune. I baked some sweet cookies, I thought we could eat them together. Sukune and Naruto both blinked before staring at each other, then looking back at Kurumu. Why me, him? Kurumu smiled before blushing. Didn't I say that I was looking for my destined one? The trio nodded before Kurumu continued. Well, I decided it's Sukune. The trio stood in shock before recoiling. Kurumu nodded. Didn't you risk your life protecting me, Sukune? I've fallen for you? Kurumu ran up and wrapped her arms around Sukune and pushing her breasts onto him. Here, try some of my cookies. Moka glared at Kurumu before turning to Naruto. Naruto, do something. She turned to see Naruto pounding on the ground with a rain cloud over his head. Why does Sukune get all the girls? Kurumu smiled before walking in front of Naruto. Of course I also got you something too, Naruto-kun, since you'll be my future brother-in-law. I heard you like ramen, so she pulled out a bowl of ramen from behind her back, offering it to Naruto. I made you some. Naruto instantly appeared in front of Kurumu, a sparkle in his eyes. Welcome to the family, Kurumu-ne. Moka could only stare before glaring and running over to Sukune and latching onto his arm. Sukune is mine. Kurumu glared before latching onto Sukune's other arm. No, he's mine. The girls soon got into a tug of war with Sukune as Naruto sat off eating the ramen Kurumu made him. Sukune could only cry anime tears as the two girls used him a tug of war rope. There goes our peaceful lives. Naruto ate happily, oblivious to the world. This ramen is great. Moka finally decided to end the tug of war by biting Sukune's neck. Kapuchu, ga, oh, we're actually back. About time he got off his lazy ass and got to making this. Anyways, since I have the narration job again, I should probably get to it. We join our heroes in another day of school, doing the only thing they're good at. Boom. Damn it, Naruto. Destroying things that are probably rather expensive and causing extreme collateral damage. Sukune could only glare at his best friend as Naruto stood on top of a pile of rubble that was at one time the school's library. Sukune began rubbing his temples in annoyance and frustration as he restrained himself from trying to kill his foster brother. Sukune let out a breath of anger and looked at the grinning face of Naruto, his right eye twitching in irritation. Okay. Explain this to me as simple as you can without making me want to kill you. Sukune asked his friend, his fist shaking in anger, and please make it fast, I can already feel my vision clouding with anger. Naruto smiled and began waving his arms in a waving movement. Well, it all started when. Flashback: Naruto stood silently, staring blankly at a book on the shelf before taking it out and opening it. He appeared to be reading a couple sentences when the librarian walked up and smiled at him kindly. She adjusted her glasses and spoke to Naruto. You seem rather interested in this book, do you need help checking it? OU? Naruto suddenly threw the book down violently and pointed at it on the floor. This book has too many big words and not enough pictures. Destruction. A red ball of chakra formed in Naruto's hand and he slammed it down on the book, an explosion of red light occurring as soon as it hit the book. The librarian stood smiling as the light began to consume her. Only one day left until retirement. Flashback over. Sukune stood, mouth hanging open as he stared at the grinning Naruto in disbelief. Sukune looked down, his hair shadowing his eyes, and his body began shaking in anger as Naruto stood proudly on top of the rubble. You should have seen it, Sukune. I killed that evil book good. Naruto, inside my soul right now is a burning hatred that I have felt unlike any other. It is simmering to the point where I may lapse into a berserker rage simply from the next thing you say. So, Naruto, before you say anything, think carefully, for the next thing you say is the only thing saving you from the sweet embrace of death. Naruto stared blankly at the form of Sukune, which now had a red aura surrounding him, before smiling and giving Sukune a thumbs up. You should have been there, the explosion was pretty epic. There was a loud sound of glass breaking before Sukune charged at Naruto violently. Naruto yelped as Sukune tackled him, which then proceeded to turn into a cartoonish cloud of smoke as fists and limbs were thrown around wildly. And so, this was the sight that Moka Akashiya came across as she went about her free time, searching for the two friends. She stared blankly at the two pseudo-brothers fighting on top of a junk pile that was once the library building. Moka blinked before coughing loudly, getting the attention of the two fighters. They stopped in mid-fight with Sukune gripping Naruto's collar with a fist reared back ready to hit him and Naruto with a kunai drawn above Sukune's head, ready to stab him. Both of the boys stared at Moka as if she was interrupting something important instead of a stupid brawl. Can we help you? Moka's right eye twitched as her two male friends answered her simultaneously. You two are idiots. Transition of scenes. Away. Moka sighed as she walked through the halls with the two friends, who had seemed to forget their earlier brawl and proceed to have a conversation about absolutely nothing. So then I kicked him in the nads. Naruto, a kick to the balls isn't a legitimate move to use on a ninja. It worked, didn't it? Well, yes, but then it's a legitimate move. Moka sighed as she slumped down into her seat and put her face into her hands. While her two male best friends were kind, funny, strong, reliable, and willing to protect her at all costs, their positive attributes did not make up for the simple fact that they were kind of stupid. She turned her head to stare at the two that were now in an intense game of Uno before her lips were turned into a smile once again from listening to them. Well, at least they were entertaining. Aha! You've triggered my trap card, change color, blue. HMPH. Clever move Naruto, but you forget that I am one with the heart of the cards. Draw 4, red. Gasp. The legendary card. Moka could only laugh as her Naruto and Sukune continued to add overzealous dramatics to the card game. She leaned over to whisper in Sukune's ear, Anyo. Sukune. Class is about to start, you two might want to stop. Sukune jumped in his seat when Moka whispered into his ear, making her giggle. He was pretty focused on the game to be caught off guard by her. Oh, what? Right. Class, he turned over to Naruto, who only had one card left while Sukune had 4 and grinned evilly. He proceeded to smack all the cards off the table and into Naruto's lap, messing the game up. Dude, what the hell? Sukune grinned before pointing at the front of the class at Nekonomi's-sensei walking in. Sensei's here, game over. Naruto began grumbling to himself as he began cleaning up the cards. Sukune turned over to Moka and winked, making her giggle. Nekonomi clapped, gaining the attention of her students. She smiled as she gained their full attention. Well, my students, I have some news for you. To help you better integrate yourself with the human world, you are allowed to join a club today. By joining a club, it will help you maintain your human forms better and act according to human society. A student then proceeded to raise his hand and tell Nekonomi that her form was slipping and was then scratched repeatedly in the face by said teacher. Later on, in the epic search for a club, Moka walked arm in arm with Sukune and Naruto as they walked around looking for a club to join. They were approached by several different clubs looking to make Moka a member, only to be stared down by Sukune and Naruto, who sensed their perverted intentions. The group of friends continued walking until they were called out by a certain blue-haired bombshell. Yahoo! Sukune-kun! Oh god, wait, Kurumu, don't tackle me. It was too late, he was already tackled by the succubus as Moka stared on in anger and Naruto laughed at his best friend was tackled to the ground by a girl almost half his size. Oh my god. Ha ha ha. That's hilarious. The proclaimed king of titans taken down by a tiny high school girl. Wait until everyone back home hears about this. Naruto's laughing only continued as Moka rushed over and proceeded to play tug of war with Kurumu over Sukune. Let go of him, Kurumu. Why, he's my destined one. No, he's not. Why do you care? You don't have a claim on him. That's not the point. Sukune stared at the girls blankly. Don't I get a say in this? The girls glared at Sukune, anger in their eyes. No. Join the kendo club. Learn the way of the sword. The group of friends' attention was drawn over to a stage where a group of monsters stood around in kendo uniforms, the top GI being white and the hakama being blue, advertising the kendo club. Come and challenge our captain, Sayaka Kirazaki, beat her and win a date. Standing in the middle of the platform was a beautiful girl wearing the kendo uniform but with a kanji on the back that stood for captain. She stood at 5 feet 5 with hair as dark as night, tied in a high ponytail with her hair reaching her mid-back. Her bangs framed her beautiful face perfectly, giving her the appearance of a princess. An hourglass figure with her breasts being quite large, a D-cup from the looks of it. She wore samurai-styled arm guards around her wrists. She was currently holding a katan in her right hand, with the being 4 feet long in size. The sheath was snow white with the guard being in the shape of a 5-pointed star. The handle was snow white. Naruto grinned as he smiled at Sukune. Hey, go up there and tell them they have a challenge, I'll be right back. Sukune nodded and gave a malicious grin. Going to prove who the strongest is? Naruto nodded his head and gave a foxy grin. You know it. He began walking away towards the male dorms. Moka reached out to stop him but Sukune placed his hand on her shoulder to stop her. Don't worry, he'll be right back. Moka glanced at Sukune, worry etched on her face. Is he going to challenge the captain? She seems pretty strong, Sukune. Sukune could only grin at the vampire girl as he reassured her, don't worry, he'll be alright. Kurumu latched on to Sukune and smiled up at him. Yeah, I'm sure Naruto would be alright. After all, he is my future brother-in-law and has to be strong to keep up with my Sukune-kun. Moka's eye twitched as she once again glared at Kurumu. What does that have to do with anything? And he's not yours. Meanwhile, with Naruto walked into his room and made his way over to his bag. He opened it up and pulled out a scroll with the label, Swords. He opened it up and bit his finger, spreading the blood on the scroll. With a poof of smoke, His two swords, Mugetsu and Benihime, appeared in his hands, and Naruto allowed a smirk to grace his face. "There you two are. Let the world be graced with your presence once again." Back at the club fair, Sayaka Kirizaki could only sigh as her best friend and maid, Ayane Shirogane, continued to shout about winning a date with her. Sayaka glared at Ayane in irritation. "Do you really have to do this?" Ayane smiled at her mistress as more and more challengers began to show up. "Why yes, Oju-sama, this is necessary if you want to bring in more members. Plus, this also rids me of constantly searching for a proper husband for my violent mistress." "What was that?" Ayane began sweating furiously at the glare of Sayaka as she turned back around to face the crowd. "Nothing, mistress." The crowd continued to surround the kendo club as Sayaka defeated more and more challengers. However, the sea of students began to split as a trio made its way through. With closer inspection, Sayaka noticed that it was one half of the infamous first-year duo that was causing teachers to pull their hair out. Sukune Aono was said to be the muscle of the two, taking out the delinquent Saizo without so much as a scratch. Sayaka scoffed. Any monster who could throw a punch properly could take out Saizo. It was nothing noteworthy of mention to her. Her eyes narrowed, however, when she noticed the rather famous Moka Akashiya and Kurumu Kurono hanging off of his arms, apparently arguing over who Sukune belonged to. Sayaka hated men who played with women's hearts like that. If she paid closer attention, she would see the look of annoyance that was on Sukune's face at the two arguing girls. Ayane leaned over to whisper to her mistress. "Oju-sama, isn't that one of the infamous pair known as the destructive duo, Violent Emperor Sukune?" Sayaka's eyes narrowed as Sukune came closer and closer to the stand. "Yes, but that brings up the fact of where is the other one, Prank King Naruto, is?" "Ah yes. Sukune and Naruto, in the short weeks they had been at Yokai Academy, they had already made a reputation of themselves. With the news of Saizu's defeat spreading rather quickly, delinquent monsters from all over school challenged Sukune over and over again. Not to say any of them got a hit in, considering the fact that all the students would find as a heap of broken bodies in Sukune's wake. There was one time where they actually found one student's head shoved up another student's ass. This was due to the fact that the delinquents had argued over who would fight Sukune first and accidentally spilled Moka's tomato juice all over her shirt, making her tear up. The result of Sukune's anger was evident in the painful surgery the two delinquents had to go through, plus the constant emotion therapy they have to go through to erase the painful memory. While Sukune was known for his sheer ability to excel in violence, Naruto was known for simply screwing with Yokai Academy's students and faculty. There was the incident of the school's football team finding itching powder in their jock straps. The history teacher finding pictures of him having relations with a male stripper all over the school. Finding the cheerleading team running through the halls with nothing but towels wrapped around as they tried to find their clothes. And many, many more. The two friends' acts of violence and proclaimed comedy quickly spread throughout the school, gaining them a quick reputation of infamy and swearing wherever their names were heard. All in all, Sayaka had not formed the best impression of the two friends in the short weeks they had been here. And she doubted her expectations would get any better considering the fact that the Violent Emperor was also a playboy. Sukune walked up and slipped his arms out of Moka and Kurumu's grasp, earning a groan of displeasure from the succubus and a sigh of relief from the vampire. Sukune began walking towards Sayaka, only to be blocked by Ayane, who had a cheeky grin on her face. "Are you here to challenge Sayaka Taiko?" If so, she was silenced as Sukune bypassed her and walked straight up to Sayaka. He easily dwarfed the swordswoman in height as he looked down at her with a confident smirk. "I'm here to issue a challenge." Sayaka smirked right back, not easily intimidated by Sukune's imposing figure. "Oh, here to challenge me, yet you did not grab a blade from Ayane. Are you saying you can fight me barehanded?" Sukune chuckled as he pointed at himself. "Oh, the challenge is not from me." Sayaka raised an eyebrow curiously at Sukune. She blinked and took an intake of breath. "Then who is it from?" "That would be me." Once again the crowd parted as a head of blonde hair made its way through the crowd. It was Naruto, now dressed in a black GI top with orange flames on the sleeves and black hakama pants with orange flames on the bottom. He wore black socks that slipped into his wooden geta sandals. Attached to his right hip were his swords, Mugetsu and Benihime. He looked like an old-school samurai straight out of a movie, you know, if samurai had blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks. But that's not the point. As the crowd parted, comments could be heard here and there. Whoa, is that Uzumaki? He doesn't look that cool. Are those real swords? Nah, where would someone like him get something like that? I'd tap that. Really, Julie? Really? Sayaka felt her face heat up a bit as Naruto made his way onto the stage, passing by Kurumu and Moka, who smiled at him, earning a grin from the foxy ninja. Naruto walked past Ayane and up to Sayaka, taking a spot next to Sukune and grinned at her. Sorry for making Sukune ask you, had to grab my gear. Naruto smiled and patted Sukune on the shoulder, making Sukune smile and walk away, grabbing Moka and Kurumu by the shoulders and walking off the stage. Sayaka stared at the prank king as her eyes narrowed. How dare this foolish jester pretend to practice the way of the sword? She could not let such a farce continue. Ayane, clear the stage. Ayane nodded her head as she and the rest of the kendo club began moving the crowd off the stage and onto the floor. Once it was clear, Ayane walked back up and stood between the glaring Sayaka and the smirking Naruto. She cleared her throat and proclaimed loudly, "We have a challenger. Naruto Uzumaki has challenged Kendo Club Captain Sayaka Kirazaki to a duel." Instantly the crowd erupted in cheers and jeers as Ayane pronounced the fight. The Kendo Club was of course supporting their captain. Yeah, kick his ass Taiko, beat him in a second captain. Bill, what the hell? Hey, he glued me to the toilet, I'm pissed. Sukune crossed his arms and chuckled to himself, earning the attention of Moka and Kurumu, who stared curiously at their not-so-secret love interest. Anyo, Sukune. Sukune turned to look at Moka, who had a worried look on her face. Will Naruto be alright? Kurumu nodded her head in agreement with the vampire girl. Yeah, I know he is strong and everything, but Sayaka Kirazaki is renowned throughout the school as a sword master. Sukune, much to the puzzlement of the girls, began laughing, as if the notion of Naruto losing in a sword match was the funniest thing he ever heard, which it probably was, but the girls didn't know that. He's not the one you should be worried about, it's the sword girl you should be worried for. Back at the slash fight that's about to begin, Ayane cleared her throat as she glanced at both combatants. She noticed that her mistress had a look on her face that she had seen only a few times. She felt sorry for the blonde-haired challenger. She hoped that his beating wouldn't be too brutal. If only she knew. Although this is a match to advertise the Kendo Club, it is still a sword fight, therefore, you will only win if the opponent is either knocked out or admits defeat. Is that understood? Sayaka nodded her head as she drew her blade, revealing the blade to also be a pure snow white without a single flaw. She moved into a basic kendo stance and glared at her opponent, who was currently picking his nose in boredom, with his right hand resting lazily on Mugetsu. Yeah, begin the fight already. Ayane gulped as a tick mark appeared on her mistress's head and an aura of hatred surrounded her form. She lifted up her hand to let the two know to get ready. Very well, she glanced at Sayaka, who tensed in preparation, then at Naruto, who was counting how many ramen bowls he had eaten this week. Only 30? Wow, I'm really slacking. Ayane sighed before throwing her hand down to start the match. Begin. Ayane jumped off the stage as soon as Sayaka charged at Naruto, who hadn't thrown his guard up, slashing downwards to cut him diagonally across his midsection. A shockwave occurred as the attack hit Naruto, kicking up a cloud of dust, hiding him from sight. Back to the trio, Moka gasped as Sayaka got a clean hit on Naruto. Naruto. She made to run to the stage, but was stopped by a grinning Sukune. Don't worry, he's alright. Moka glared at Sukune and pointed at the stage. What do you mean he's alright? Did you not see what just happened? She was stopped mid-rant from a tap on the should from Kurumu, who was pointing at the stage with wide eyes and mouth hanging open. Moka turned to look at the stage, only to see Sayaka with wide eyes as her blade was resting on Naruto's shoulder, not a single scratch or cut anywhere. The blade didn't even cut through his clothes. What the? See, Naruto is alright. Moka and Kurumu turned to stare at Sukune, shock evident on his face. Sukune crossed his arms and grinned. Naruto has something called Hyperion Constitution. It makes his skin, bones, even his cells denser and harder than a normal person's. Heck, even I can't bruise his skin without adding some force behind it. Moka turned back to the stage and smiled. So that means? Sukune nodded his head. Yup. He turned back to the stage, his arms crossed and a grin on his face. Without the strongest of blades, Sayaka can't cut Naruto. Kurumu jumped up and cupped her hands to her mouth and shouted. Woo! Go Naruto, beat that sword girl, back to the fight. Sayaka stared in shock as her family's blade, Asa no Yuki, Morning Snow, was blocked by the blonde fool, who wasn't even blocking. He was just standing there, her blade hadn't even cut through his clothes. What was he made out of? You done yet? Sayaka slowly looked up to see Naruto staring at her with half-lidded eyes, a look of complete boredom, as if he wasn't even paying attention to the blade. Sayaka's eyes widened before she jumped back to gain some distance between her and Naruto. She glared at him only to receive a bored look back. How did that not cut you? Asa no Yuki can cut through the hardest of steel, yet it didn't even faze you. How? Naruto gave a foxy grin and shrugged. Sorry, that's a trade secret. Sayaka glared once again before charging in once again and attacking Naruto with a flurry of slashes. Naruto didn't move a single inch, the blade repeatedly hitting his skin, but never leaving a single scratch. Sayaka jumped back once again to gain distance. She let out a breath of frustration at the fact that she hadn't left a single cut. He hadn't even drawn one sword, damn it. Your blade, it cries. Sayaka blinked before her eyes narrowed at Naruto. What was that? Naruto sighed before pointing at Asa no Yuki. Your blade is crying. Crying because its owner isn't strong enough. Sayaka's anger shot up to a whole new level after that comment as her Yuki began increasing. What was that? Naruto sighed and stretched, cracking his back and letting out a sigh of relief. What I'm saying is, you don't have enough strength to cut me. You don't put enough faith in you, blade. You're weak. A growl came out of Sayaka's mouth as she lifted her katana, her blade being coated in a white aura. I'll show you weak. Yaju no Sakebi ka. Yama no Bunri ken. Beasts cry school. Mountain-splitting sword. Ayane jumped up in shock as Sayaka swung her sword down. Oju-sama no. It'll hit the students. It was too late. The energy was released and the wave of Yuki was sent flying at Naruto, who stood impassively. Moka shouted in shock as the blade of energy came flying at Naruto. Naruto, move. Naruto kept standing still as the energy came flying at him. Naruto lifted his right hand up and backhanded the energy away, making it fly up to the ceiling, making it explode and blow a hole through it. Naruto stood impassively again, staring boredly at the shocked face of Sayaka. See. Weak. Sayaka could only stare as Naruto began drawing his blades. Mugetsu in his right hand and Benihime in his left. He crossed the blades in front of him in an X shape and crouched down. Sorry, but I have to finish this. Naruto charged towards her at an incredible speed, becoming a blur to the onlookers. Sayaka prepared her blade in defense. But in a second he was gone, disappearing from in front of her. Kami no Ken Yoshiki. Fujin no Tachiba. Keizo Nagaleru. God's sword-style stance of the wind god, flowing wind. Sayaka's eyes widened. How did he get behind her? It was so quiet, she couldn't even hear the wind. Clink. Asterisk, all she heard was the sheathing of his blades before her clothes were shredded into a million pieces, leaving her in only her undergarments, but exposing her well-endowed body to the world. Kaya. She instantly crouched down to cover her body as the male population erupted into roars of victory. She felt so ashamed to be defeated like this. Sayaka suddenly felt the warmth of clothes around her and looked up. Standing there with his top half exposed to the world was Naruto. Sayaka blushed as she noticed the defined muscles and six-pack that Naruto was sporting. Sayaka then cleared her face of the blush as she stared at Naruto curiously. How? Your swordsmanship is beautiful, full of grace and power. How did you become this strong? Naruto drew Mugetsu and held it in front of his face. I believed. Sayaka stared curiously. What? Naruto pointed Mugetsu at Sayaka and smiled. I believed that I needed to be this strong. Through countless trials I trained my body and skills to the limit. Naruto looked to the crowd and smiled at Sukune, who smiled back. And I had people I needed to get strong for. As long as I trusted my blades, they would in turn trust me and be my faithful partners. They're not objects, they're a part of me. With these blades by my side, I could even cut God. Sayaka could only stare in shock as Naruto began walking off stage as members of the Kendo Club began gathering around their captain to shield her form. Wait. Naruto turned around to look at Sayaka, who had a blush on her face. Please, join the Kendo Club. Ayane and the Kendo Club's eyes widened as Sayaka asked Naruto to join the club. Naruto smiled before turning around with a wave of his hand. Sorry, but I have to refuse, but tell you what, once you believe you have become the strongest swordswoman, beat me and I'll join you. Sayaka watched as Naruto walked off the stage and into the crowd towards his friends. She then looked down at Asa no Yuki, which seemed to be glowing. The strongest, huh? With the crew. Moka and Kurumu's mouths hung agape at what had just transpired. Wow, he's amazing. Sukune could only smile at the girls' faces. He nodded his head and looked up. Well, of course he is, he's the strongest swordsman in the world. Moka and Kurumu stared at Sukune as he said that. Kurumu raised her hand as if asking permission to speak. What do you mean by that, Sukune? Sukune could only smile as he uncrossed his arms and began walking towards Naruto, the girls following. Naruto literally defeated the strongest swordsman back in the human world. He beat all of them and has the official title of strongest swordsman in the world. Although he acts a fool, every day you are talking to the only man who could probably cut the sea, earth, even God in half. Moka and Kurumu continued to stare in shock as they approached Naruto. As soon as he got there, they began bombarding him with questions. Naruto put his hands up as if to give up. Whoa, one at a time now. Sukune walked up to Naruto and put his hand on his shoulder. One big question, bro. Naruto smiled at his best friend, who he completely trusted. And what is that, bro? He was not prepared for Sukune to plant a right hook to Naruto's face. Why the hell did you cut her clothes off the next day? Man, all that work and we still didn't find a club. We would have if you didn't insist on going to that swim club. Come bro, hot bikini chicks, what's not to like about that? Naruto, they tried to eat us. So, I think you just gave me an aneurysm from the stupidity. Wow, you must be pretty stupid bro, I'll kill you. Moka and Kurumu came across the two friends that were once again fighting over something stupid again and could only giggle at their antics. Naruto-sama. Naruto and Sukune stopped their brawling to see Ayane running up to them with a blushing Sayaka in tow. They stopped in front of the gang of friends with Ayane grinning at Naruto. Naruto-sama, Oju-sama would like to ask you something. Ayane pushed Sayaka up to the front and into Naruto's face. Her blushing face struck Naruto as cute, it also helped her boobs were enormous. Sayaka continued blushing before bowing and presenting Naruto with a bento box. Naruto Dono. WOULDYOUDOMETHEHONOROFEATINGLUNCHWITHME. Naruto blinked as Sukune chuckled and Moka, Kurumu, and the already friendly Ayane began squealing in the background. Naruto smiled and took the bento box from Sayaka, who looked up to his smiling face. Sure, we'd be glad to. Sayaka smiled as she turned to the equally giddy Ayane. Now she just had to wait. We? Naruto stared at her blankly before nodding his head and signaling to Sukune. Yeah, we, as in me and Sukune, the guys you invited. Ayane watched as her mistress began shaking in anger before rearing her hand back and slapping Naruto. Baka. Naruto watched with a surprised face as Sayaka stormed off. He turned to Sukune, surprise still on his face. What did I do? Moka and Kurumu sighed, hopefully Sukune would knock some sense into him. Dude, I don't know. I thought she was pretty nice, guess she doesn't like us. And Moka and Kurumu's hopes were dashed. Apparently Sukune can notice when a girl likes him, but others were optional. Kurumu threw her hands up in frustration. Idiots, both of you. Sukune and Naruto blinked before turning to Moka. What did we do? Moka crossed her arms and walked up to Sukune. Figure it yourself. HMPH. Sukune blinked before Moka latched onto his neck for some blood. Kapu-chu. Oh damn it. Naruto scratched the back of his head and stared off into space. I'm still confused. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.